My name is Mike Quinn. I've had the privilege of being involved with Special Olympics here in New Hampshire for more than 40 years. I was the recreation director at the old Laconia State School and Training Center, and we received an invitation from the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation to attend what they were referring to as the International Special Olympics that would be held in Chicago at Soldiers Field in the summer of 1968. Eunice Kennedy Shriver was the founder of the Special Olympics program. It was her idea, it was her concept. The deal was if you could get to Chicago and to participate in these games, you would be the guest of the Kennedy Foundation during the time that your athletes were there. We were able to send 2 staff members and 6 young men from the Laconia State School out to that event. They didn't have the resources at the time for airfare or that type of thing, but we had spent quite a bit of our recreation department budget on camping equipment and a van. And so they took the van, they took the camping equipment, and they camped out across half the United States to get to Chicago to participate in that event. A couple of things. One, they had a wonderful time, and it was a fantastic event. They came back and reported that this is really something that was an excellent idea. They enjoyed it. They did well. There was sports. There was magnificent opening ceremonies. But I think one of the things that I continue to go back to about that story is that it sort of represents what Special Olympics has been about. What has allowed it to move forward was the wherewithal that those 2 young staff members had with those 6 young men to take a van and camp out across the United States in order to get to that event. In 1970, a lady by the name of Jean Tufts, who was the principal of the Rockingham School in Exeter, New Hampshire, was contacted by the Kennedy Foundation, and she and her husband Arthur Tufts, who at the time was the president of the New Hampshire Senate, sponsored the very, very first Special Olympics Games here in New Hampshire. There are about 174 athletes that attended those games. A number of them were from the old Laconia State School, as well as the Great Bay School, the Rockingham School, Exeter Junior High School. Franklin, New Hampshire was represented there. There were 12 teams altogether that took part in those very, very first New Hampshire events. In '72, the event was moved, and Mrs. Tufts asked me if I would assume sort of responsibility for, as state director for the Special Olympics then. The games were moved to Plymouth State College, where they were held in '72 and also in '73, moving on from there to Manchester and then to Keene State College, then back to Plymouth, and then ultimately at the University of New Hampshire, which has been their home ever since the mid-'70s. So it has been a really exciting growth as far as the summer games go. But what's more important about Special Olympics is that it wasn't just a matter of a one-day event once a year. Slowly but surely, during those formative years, more sports were added. Probably the most dynamic addition to the project were the Winter Games. In 1979, the very first Special Olympics New Hampshire Winter Games were held in Eastman, up in Grantham, New Hampshire. There was snowshoe and there was cross-country skiing involved. Again, that opened the door to many more people participating in that. In 1975, the board of directors, which was pretty much a hands-on group of people back then, actually running the events and doing the fundraising hands-on themselves, determined that it was time for the organization to take the next step and hired the very first executive director of Special Olympics, a gentleman by the name of Fred Toll, who for a number of years single-handedly operated and grew the program literally off his kitchen table in Laconia, New Hampshire. His first staff member was a fellow by the name of Tom O'Brien, who was pretty much an expert in many sports, but specifically in winter sports, alpine and cross-country skiing. And Tom took it upon himself to expand the winter sports program. Through a relationship with the Bretton Woods ski area, Special Olympics was able to acquire large quantities of cross-country skis and ultimately alpine skis after that, as well as the appropriate boots. Tom would literally travel from school to school, special ed class to special ed class. He'd outfit those students with cross-country shoes, with cross cross-country skis, as well as their teacher, and then take the entire class and teacher out to the field behind the elementary school and do cross-country ski lessons. And as a result of that, literally hundreds of folks with intellectual challenges at the elementary and junior high school level learned about cross-country skiing, were able to participate in the competitions that were held at a state level with Special Olympics. So that was a very, very exciting time. Again, in the early 80s, a statewide basketball tournament was added. That was hosted down at Salem, New Hampshire. And for the first time, more athletes began again attending. Some of the important things about the addition of these events was they weren't just a matter of demonstrating the skills that athletes had learned as a result of their training programs, but they were overnight events. Folks were spending the night, at Bretton Woods during the Winter Games for 2 nights. There were social activities associated with it, dances, meals, etc., as well as very, very effective and fun opening ceremonies and parades of athletes. Same case with the basketball tournament. Same case with the state games. A real expansion of the experience that folks with intellectual challenges were having as a result of Special Olympics. As the program continued to grow and continued to become a little more and more sophisticated, Special Olympics fundraising became very important. There was a need for more expenses to be covered. Basically, the program has always been one that charges no fees to individual athletes or their families. They may ask a local team to participate in a fundraising project. And one of the things that has been really effective is that as the emphasis and need for fundraising has grown, Special Olympics New Hampshire has put tools into the hands of the local programs and local teams for them to be able to raise the resources that they need to make their own teams and their own Special Olympics experience more effective for their athletes. A perfect example is the very successful Penguin Plunge, where teams can participate and half of the proceeds go right back to them, and they're able to use them for for uniforms, for better equipment, for buses, for transportation, and it goes on from there. So as the fundraising became more sophisticated, so did the board of directors in that relationship, where it has gone from special events like the Penguin Plunge, like raffles, telemarketing, things that we're trying to scale back on because nobody likes the telemarketing piece, but nevertheless, we found over the years that if you don't ask folks to give you money, they probably won't, and has moved on now to where we're talking about individual giving and plan giving, and the board of directors is becoming very, very active in that area. So again, growth, as the program grew from that very, very good idea of a one-day event being held on a bright, sunny day, it has grown programmatically, it has grown fundraising-wise, it has grown organizationally, become much more sophisticated, and it has grown locally. And the same types of growth and the experiences that the state organization has had, Special Olympics is trying to put into the hands of each of those local programs so they can continue to grow and expand. The thing about all of that experience, certainly one, was very exciting to have been involved with it. For the last 22 years, prior to a year ago when I stepped back from the position, I had the privilege of being the president and CEO of Special Olympics. So having been that, and having been as excited as I was all the years that was going on, I would say to folks, come to Special Olympics, take a look at what it is that is happening now, take a look at what has happened in the past. Pick a piece of it, and I promise you that if you exert yourself, if you apply yourself to the needs that continue to crop up and will probably always be part of what Special Olympics movement, what the movement is involved in, you can really make an impact, a very positive impact, on the lives of folks with intellectual challenges.